Part 1. The Proposal and the Promise. When Ethan got down on one knee, I wasn't expecting it. Not because I didn't think he loved me. He did. Fiercely, genuinely. The kind of love you feel safe in. But because we were in the middle of my best friend's birthday dinner, and I had just shoved a mouthful of risotto into my face. The restaurant had dim lights, flickering candles, and the soft clinking of wine glasses around us. My best friend, Claire, sat across from us, all glowing with champagne and compliments. She had just turned 28 and was beaming. Her perfect white teeth, sleek dark hair, and that magnetic charisma that always made her the center of every room. Ethan reached across the table, touching my hand lightly. I remember thinking he looked nervous, more than usual, and then suddenly he was on one knee, holding out a velvet box that seemed too small to contain the world he was offering me. Claire gasped. I nearly choked on rice. Marry me, Julia, he said, voice just above a whisper, but loud enough to pull glances from nearby tables. Let's build a life together. I blinked. A strange emotion pulsed through me. Disbelief, joy, panic, warmth. I didn't even wipe my mouth. I just nodded. Double quotes, yes. I breathed. Yes, of course. There was cheering from nearby tables. Someone clapped, and Claire squealed. Not a scream. Not a scream of shock or happiness. More like ... ownership. Like something exciting just happened to her. She was already halfway out of her seat, hugging Ethan, then pulling me into a tight embrace. You didn't tell me. She scolded him playfully. I'm your best friend, Jules. How could you not tell me? She didn't know either. Ethan said with a sheepish smile. Wanted to surprise everyone. Oh, Claire said, pausing for half a beat. Her eyes flicked between us, lingering on Ethan for a second longer than was comfortable. Well, I love surprises. I should have noticed that pause. I should have paid more attention to the flash of something in her eyes, but I didn't, because I was too busy imagining the rest of my life with Ethan. That night, Claire drove me home. Ethan had a work call, and I was buzzing with excitement. Too overwhelmed to sleep, she insisted on staying for wine and helping me dream plan the wedding. We sat cross-legged on my bed, Pinterest boards open, champagne in hand, wedding playlists humming in the background. Okay, she said, eyes wide with excitement. First things first. I'm your maid of honor, right? I blinked at her. Well, yeah. Of course. She smiled, wide, toothy, victorious. Good? Just making sure. We clinked glasses. Do you think Ethan's into surprises? She asked later, swirling her wine. Like, what if we did a flash mob for the reception? I laughed. He'd probably panic and run. She laughed too, but then said, no, seriously though. Has he ever, dated anyone long before you? The question caught me off guard. Why? No reason, she said quickly. I'm just curious. You two got serious kind of fast. I tilted my head. Claire? Are you interrogating me right now? She giggled. No, just being thorough. Maid of honor duties. Looking back, I don't know what I was supposed to feel in that moment. Her tone was light, teasing, but there was something deeper under it, an undercurrent I didn't catch until much later. Wedding planning began almost immediately. Claire was involved in everything, from picking out dresses to interviewing. Caterers. At first, I was grateful. I had a demanding job, and she was offering help. She was always a planner, a perfectionist, the kind of woman who thrives in chaos and tames it into color-coded spreadsheets. But slowly, subtly, the lines began to blur. She would change appointments without asking me. I moved the cake tasting to Friday afternoon. That bakery had a cancellation. But I work Friday afternoons. I know, but this is your wedding, Jules. She would suggest changes I didn't ask for. Look, I know you love those lavender bridesmaid dresses, but they washed me out. What do you think of emerald green instead? She'd send Ethan texts late at night, sometimes funny wedding memes, sometimes questions I'd already answered. Claire texted me about the guest list again, Ethan said one night. She says we should consider cutting your cousins if we want to fit the band. Cut my cousins? I asked, exasperated. Why not cut her plus ones? She says they're essential connections, networking. That was Claire, always balancing charm with strategy. And for a long time, I convinced myself it was just her being extra invested. She loved me, I told myself. She wanted the best. It wasn't until the bachelorette party that the red flags became impossible to ignore. She insisted on hosting it at her family's beach house, a massive, modern place nestled into the cliffs just outside Santa Barbara. A dozen of my closest friends piled into cars and showed up with bottles of tequila and glittery swimsuits. The weekend started out fine. Too many drinks, sunburns, and obscene amount of pink decor. But Claire had arranged the sleeping assignments and made sure she and Ethan, who was coming just for one day for a co-ed brunch, would be in the same car on the drive back. You don't mind, do you? She asked me casually as we lounged in hammocks that afternoon. You'll be staying later anyway. I figured I'd just drop him off on the way back. I guess, I said. Why wouldn't he ride with me, though? You'll have other friends to drive, she said, too quickly. Besides, I thought it'd be nice to get to know him better, bonding. That night, after too many cocktails, one of the girls pulled me aside. Claire single quotes S. Intense. Huh. She whispered, What? Do you mean? She talks about Ethan a lot. Like, a lot. It's kind of weird. I waved it off. She's just excited. But even as I said it, I felt something uncomfortable lodge itself in my chest. A few weeks later, I caught her scrolling through Ethan's Instagram photos during brunch. You're obsessed, I teased. She looked up, startled. What? You've been staring at my fiancé's face for like 5 minutes? She laughed. Oh, please. He just has good lighting in his pictures. My stomach twisted. There were more little moments after that, her laughing too loudly at his jokes, finding excuses to stand too close, calling him by nicknames only I used. I told myself I was being paranoid, because who would ever suspect? Claire? Claire who braided my hair before dances. Claire who cried with me after breakups. Claire who made me promise we'd be each other's maid of honor before we even had boyfriends. She couldn't. She wouldn't, right? Part 2. Cold feet. Or colder lies. I remember the exact moment everything started to feel off. It was a week after the engagement party. Claire and I were sitting in my living room, sipping wine and looking through Pinterest boards for wedding inspiration. She had always been the type to get lost in the details, centerpieces, napkin folds, lighting schemes. She practically lived for events like this, and I always imagined she'd be just as obsessed with my wedding as she'd been with planning her own birthday brunches. But that night, something was different. She was distracted. Her eyes kept flicking to her phone, and when she thought I wasn't looking, she smiled at her screen in a way that made my stomach twist, not with jealousy, but with that subtle dread that creeps up when you subconsciously know something's wrong but can't prove it yet. Everything okay? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Claire looked up quickly, tucking her phone away with a guilty flick of the wrist. Oh, yeah. Just work stuff at 9 p.m. on a Saturday. I didn't push. It was Claire, my best friend since sophomore. Year of college. The woman who held my hair back after tequila nights and helped me through my first real heartbreak. She knew every version of me and loved me anyway. There was no way she could be hiding something, right? Wrong. Over the next few weeks, the signs multiplied like shadows stretching in late daylight. Ethan became oddly defensive whenever I brought up Claire. Not hostile, just edgy, like he was tiptoeing across invisible wires, hoping I wouldn't. See how tense he was. One night, I casually mentioned that Claire had offered to help with tux fittings. Ethan froze for just a second, barely perceptible, but long enough for me to clock it. That's nice of her. He said, voice tight. She doesn't have to do that. She insisted, I replied, testing him. He nodded but wouldn't. Meet my eyes. I didn't want to be that woman, the paranoid fiancé who thinks every interaction is a betrayal waiting to bloom. But something didn't sit right. Still, I said nothing. I smiled. I planned. I picked out flowers. I went to cake tastings. I practiced my new signature dot, and all the while, I watched Dot then came the bridal boutique appointment. Claire was 20 minutes late, which wasn't like her. When she finally arrived, she looked flustered and out of breath. Sorry, she said, brushing imaginary lint off her blouse. Car trouble. Odd, considering she'd just posted a mirror selfie in a coffee shop less than an hour before, tagging it with fueling up before dress duty. Hash tag Bridgezilla Wrangler, but I let it go. She smiled wide when I stepped out of the changing room in the third dress, a satin A-line with delicate lace sleeves. Oh my God, she whispered. Ethan's going to lose it when he sees you. There was a softness in her voice, a true softness. The kind people use when they're pretending. My mom noticed it too. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but didn't say anything. It wasn't until 2 days later that the unraveling truly began. I was home, going over the final guest list when my phone buzzed. It was a message from one of our mutual friends, Maddie. Maddie, hey, not sure if I should say something, but I saw Claire and Ethan having lunch downtown. Just the two of them. Looked kind of intimate. Everything cool? My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen for a full minute, rereading her words. I typed back, Me, do you know where exactly? She sent the name of a small bistro Ethan and I used to frequent when we first started dating. The place was quiet, tucked away, and known for its privacy. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe they were just talking wedding logistics. Maybe they ran into each other, but I knew better. So I waited. Waited to see if Ethan would mention it. That night over dinner, I asked casually, Do anything fun today? He shrugged. Just work, boring meetings. You? I smiled, forcing the warmth. Same. And right then, I knew he lied. He sat across from me, twirling pasta around his fork, like nothing was wrong. Like he wasn't unraveling the very future we dreamed about. That night, I barely slept. My thoughts looped in endless spirals. Every weird glance, every half smile, every too long silence between them. Was I imagining it? I needed answers. The next day, I called Claire and asked if she wanted to come over for wine and planning. She said yes without hesitation. That felt ... off. When she arrived, I greeted her with a hug, trying to keep my voice steady. We talked about invitations, table arrangements, everything but the thing I actually wanted to discuss. I watched her closely, her hands, her eyes, her nervous laughter when I mentioned Ethan. And finally I asked, How are things with Ryan? Her on again, off again boyfriend? She blinked. Oh, complicated. That's funny, I said, slowly. Because Maddie told me she saw you with Ethan at Loon Bistro. Claire's face went pale. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she smiled. Wow, she laughed, shaking her head. Seriously. You think something's going on between me and Ethan? I didn't answer. She stood up abruptly, grabbing her bag. I can't believe this. After everything we've been through, this is what you think of me. I don't know what to think, I replied quietly. But I know he lied, and so did you. She hesitated at the door. Maybe you're just afraid of losing him. The words hit me like a slap, cold, calculated, and then she left. I stood there, trembling, mind spinning in 1,000 directions. That wasn't denial. That was an emotional pivot, a manipulation, a power play. Suddenly everything made sense. The messages. The looks, the subtle exclusions. Claire had always been the it girl. Beautiful, effortless, the kind of person people naturally gravitated toward. And for the most part, she'd never abused that power. Until now. Until Ethan. Part 3. The veil drops. The week after the brunch was surreal. Claire kept acting as if nothing had happened. No flinch. No guilt. No recognition of how her joke had landed like a dagger to the chest. Ethan, meanwhile, became distant. Not in the obvious way, not outright cold, but with a subtle shift in energy. He kissed me a second too late. He didn't ask how my work presentation went. His phone was Never face up anymore. Still, I kept gaslighting myself. You're paranoid. She was joking. He's just stressed. Don't be dramatic, but I couldn't unsee it. The way Claire's fingers brushed Ethan's arm when she passed by, how her laughter sparkled a bit too brightly when he spoke, how they made eye contact during group conversations that lasted a heartbeat too long. I told myself it was my imagination, that they were friends and I should be grateful that my fiancé got along with my best friend. I told myself that again and again until I found the photo. I was cleaning out Ethan's car while he was at the gym, just wiping down the inside before our road trip the following day. I opened the center console and pulled out a folded napkin. Under it was a crumpled Polaroid. Claire, smiling, sitting on Ethan's lap. A glass of wine in one hand. His arm clearly around her waist. My breath stopped. There was no time stamp. No obvious context, but the intimacy of the photo was undeniable. And Ethan doesn't drink wine. Not unless I order it. I sat there in the passenger seat, the photo burning in my hand, my entire body frozen. The car was hot, but I felt cold. Ice bloomed in my chest. He never mentioned anything. Not one word. When Ethan got back to the car, I didn't confront him. I tucked the photo back where I found it. My hands were shaking. My thoughts, too. That night, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every word exchanged, every glance between the two of them. I was unraveling. The next morning, I told him I was feeling sick and needed time to myself. He offered to cancel the trip. I told him no. I needed space, not more claustrophobic silence in a confined car. Once he left, I did something I never thought I'd do. I snooped. I opened his laptop. Password? My birthday. I felt sick again. His browser history was mostly clean. But the downloads folder wasn't. There was a zip folder titled Wedding Inspo. I opened it and found something else entirely. Photos, screenshots, messages, Claire's face, again and again. Her Instagram selfies, her bikini pictures, screenshots of text conversations between them. One message caught my eye. Claire, gee, doesn't suspect anything. It's almost too easy. Ethan, she never sees what's right in front of her. But I do, every time I look at you. I felt something snap inside me, thought it was real. The betrayal wasn't imagined. I wasn't overreacting. I was being played, lied to, by the two people I trusted most, and suddenly I wasn't numb anymore. I was on fire. I closed the laptop carefully. My body moved robotically, but my mind was racing. I had to be smart, not reckless, not emotional. This wasn't the time for screaming or crying. This was the time for precision. I printed out the screenshots, every one of them. I made copies, put them in an envelope. Then I made another, just in case. Then I called Claire. She answered, casually, like nothing was wrong. Hey, are you free for coffee tomorrow? I need a break from all this wedding madness. Just us girls. She hesitated. Sure. Yeah, where? I gave her a location. Neutral ground, a cafe halfway between our apartments. Bright, public. No distractions. We hung up. I stared at the wall. For a long time after, that night, I called Ethan too. Let's do a little tasting tomorrow, I said sweetly. Pastries for the dessert table. Remember that place we talked about? Yeah, he replied. Sounds great. Let's go. Around 1 p.m. He agreed. I booked both meetings 30 minutes apart. The next day, I got dressed deliberately. Light makeup. Neutral colors. Calm. I looked like myself, but detached. I wasn't going in there as the broken-hearted fiancé. I was walking in as the woman who knew the truth. Claire arrived first. She hugged me. I let her. We ordered drinks. She talked about her nails, her plans for the weekend. She even brought a binder with bachelorette ideas. I smiled. Claire, I said, interrupting her mid-sentence. Can I ask you something? She blinked. Of course. I reached into my purse and slid the envelope across the table. What's this? Open it. She hesitated. Then flipped it open. Silence. Her smile faded. Her face changed. This isn't what it looks like. She started, voice brittle. Oh, no. I tilted my head. Because it looks like you've been F asterisk asterisk and my fiancé. She paled. It wasn't like that. It never is, right? I leaned in. You're my maid of honor, Claire. You plan to stand beside me at my wedding while lying to my face. Every day. For months. She fumbled. It started before the engagement. I didn't know it would get serious between you two. Then why didn't you stop? I hissed. Why keep going? Tears sprang to her eyes. I loved him. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. But we have a connection. Something real. I laughed out loud and bitter. Do you think that makes this okay? She looked desperate. I was going to tell you. After the wedding, I pushed back from the table. There won't be a wedding. I turned and walked out, left her sitting there with her lies and her tears and her pathetic binder of fake. Support. Ethan was already at the bakery when I arrived. He smiled when he saw me. I handed him the second envelope. He opened it, his face drained of color. Let me explain, he began. No. I kept my voice calm, steady. You don't get to. Explain. You get to listen. You get to live with the consequences of what you did. He swallowed. I never meant to hurt you, but you did. Silence. People around us glanced over. I didn't care. I'm not here to scream. I continued, or cry. I am here to end this. I reached into my bag, pulled off the engagement ring, and placed it on the table. I deserved better. And you know it? I walked out, head held high, hands shaking. That night I cried. Not because I missed them, but because I missed who I thought they were. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just shatter the present. It rewrites the past. It steals your memories, your sense of safety, of reality. But it also strips away illusion. And in that clearing, you get to rebuild brick by brick from truth. Part 4. Shattered Vows. I stood in the dressing room of the venue, surrounded by white chiffon and trembling silence. The dress I'd once dreamed about now felt like a cruel costume. Each pearl button seam a reminder of how far this day had fallen from the fairy tale I'd imagined. The ceremony was set to begin in less than 2 hours. But instead of anticipation, there was only nausea twisting inside me. Claire hadn't come to see me all morning. She was supposed to help with last-minute details, fluff my veil, maybe sneak in a mimosa and tell me I looked beautiful. But there was nothing, just silence, and Ethan, missing too. My calls went straight to voicemail. There was a knock at the door. For a moment, I hoped it was Claire ready to explain, to beg for forgiveness, to confess it was all some horrible misunderstanding, but it was my cousin Ava. Her expression a strange mix of worry and apology. You need to come with me, she said, quietly. My heart dropped. Why? She didn't answer. Just led me down a narrow hallway past the florists, past the caterers adjusting silver trays, past the string quartet rehearsing in the corner. Then down a side corridor, we stopped in front of a utility closet. She glanced around, then opened the door just a crack. Inside, I saw them. Ethan, Claire. He was holding her waist. Her hand was on his chest. Their foreheads touched. I felt the world tilt. No words, no kissing. But the intimacy of it was undeniable. They didn't notice us. I didn't want them to. I stepped back, quietly closing the door. My hands were shaking, but I forced my voice to remain calm. Thank you, I whispered to Ava. Please don't tell anyone else. Not yet. She nodded, her face pale. I returned to the bridal suite and sat down, numb. Every breath felt heavy. The betrayal was no longer a whisper or suspicion. It was real, and it was happening on my wedding day. The choices in front of me were impossible. I could pretend. Walk down the aisle, say, I do, and become the wife of a man who'd already given his heart to someone else. Someone I'd once called my sister and everything but blood. Or I could end it. Call off the wedding. Face the guests. Face my parents. Face the mess. But what crushed me most was not the betrayal. It was how unsurprised I felt. As if some deep part of me had known this was coming. As if I had been bracing for it all along. There were more knocks at the door. My mom, the planner, the officiant, they asked if I was okay. I said I needed more time. Then, finally, Claire appeared. She walked in like nothing had happened, dressed in her matching bridesmaid gown, smiling like it was any other day. Oh, my God, you look stunning, she said breathlessly. Sorry, I've been Mia. The floor has had a meltdown. And then Ethan couldn't find his cufflinks. I stared at her. She stopped talking. The silence stretched between us like a razor wire. You saw, didn't you? She said softly. I nodded. Her face crumpled just for a second. Before she sat down across from me, it wasn't supposed to happen like this, she said. We didn't plan anything. It just happened. I almost laughed. When did it start? She looked at the floor. After the engagement. Maybe a month later. I closed my eyes. Claire and I had been friends since freshman year of high school. We'd been through breakups, road trips, all-nighters. She held my hair when I was sick. I helped her through her parents' divorce. She had been there for everything, until she wasn't. And Ethan, he had promised forever. Given me a ring, let me plan a future. Now they had stolen it all. Claire reached for my hand. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I pulled away, but you did. I didn't know what to do, she whispered. I thought about telling you, but it felt too late. And we didn't want to hurt you right before the wedding. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Right, because hurting me after the wedding would have been so much better. She flinched. I stood up, every bone in my body shaking with fury. Sadness. Clarity. I want you to leave. Wait, leave. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Please, don't hate me. I didn't respond. When she was gone, I turned to the mirror. My reflection looked back dressed in white, but not a bride. Not anymore. Ava returned a few minutes later. What do you want to do? I handed her my phone. Text everyone. The wedding is off. Ask them to stay for the reception. We'll still eat, drink, dance, but no ceremony. She blinked. Are you sure? Yes. My voice was steady now. They don't get to take everything. I walked into the reception hall an hour later, without a bouquet, without Ethan, but with my head held high. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but I raised a glass and said simply, today was supposed to be my wedding. But it turns out I had the wrong groom and the wrong maid of honor, so instead let's just celebrate freedom. The crowd erupted in support, cheers rising louder than I ever expected. Ethan never showed his face. Claire vanished. I danced with my cousins, toasted with friends, and laughed through tears. It wasn't the wedding I planned, but maybe, just maybe, it was the one I needed. Part 7, closure or chaos. The air inside the courtroom was thick with tension. I sat silently in the front row, my hands folded in my lap, every muscle in my body taut with anticipation. Across the aisle sat Kira, dressed immaculately as always, her expression unreadable. She hadn't so much as glanced at me since the trial began. Daniel was nowhere to be seen, having chosen to avoid the fallout entirely by moving overseas. A month ago. A final act of cowardice, I thought bitterly. I hadn't wanted this to be my life. I never imagined standing at the center of a media circus. My most personal betrayal turned into headlines and hashtags. But when Kira refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing and continued to twist the narrative, painting herself as a victim of toxic love, I had no choice but to act. She hadn't just stolen my fiancé. She had orchestrated an emotional ambush, destroyed the foundation of years of trust, and then paraded the relationship like a trophy. Enough was enough. That the trial wasn't for the heartbreak. It was for the fraud. See, what Kira didn't know when she signed my name as co-signer on a loan she never told me about was that I had already flagged my identity for alerts months earlier. After a previous scare, that one signature was the string that unraveled everything. Forged documents, fake email chains, even a few choice messages she deleted from Daniel's phone before I found out. She thought she was smarter than everyone. As the judge entered. Silence fell. I glanced at my attorney, who gave me a small, confident nod. Kira's lawyer was less composed, rifling through papers as if the outcome could still be salvaged by a missing page. But I knew better. Today would be about truth. When the prosecution laid out the evidence, my flagged alerts. The emails traced Akira's IP address, the security footage from the bank where she had posed as me. I felt a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. This wasn't triumph. This was fallout. Kira finally looked at me when the judge announced the verdict. Guilty on all counts. I thought I might feel joy or relief. Instead, I just felt hollow. Kira's eyes were glassy, not with tears, but with disbelief. For the first time, she didn't look confident. She looked scared. Outside the courthouse, the media swarmed. I kept my head down, pushing past cameras and questions. I didn't want to be famous. I just wanted my life back. Back home, I sat on the couch in silence, staring at the bouquet of unopened wedding invitations still tucked into the drawer beside me. They had become a strange monument, a reminder of everything that had been planned and then stolen. But now, finally, there was space to breathe. I started rebuilding quietly. I took a solo trip to the coast, just me and a journal, walking beaches at sunrise and letting the waves wash through memories I no longer needed to carry. I met new people, not looking for romance, but connection, trust, honesty. Months passed. Then one day, while sipping coffee in a quiet cafe, I got a message from someone I hadn't seen in years, Lily, a mutual friend who had been distant during the chaos. I just wanted you to know. I saw everything. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. But I'm proud of you, I smiled softly. The silence had broken, and not just in the courtroom. This story didn't end in perfect, poetic justice. It ended in growth and letting go of what had been stolen, not because it didn't matter, but because I finally understood that my worth had never been tied to what others could take, and I would never let anyone write my story for me again.